Everyone, welcome back to my channel, Relapse Tackle. In this video, I was kind of jokingly, saying that maybe I should do a tutorial pouring in this mold here. This is the only mold that I have from these guys. They are still in business, but from what I see, they mainly sell sinker molds and stuff like that. So, but this little guy, in comparison to a do-it mold or a mold that was CNC'd, it's going to be quite a bit different. And you can only pour 3 of these. There's 3 different sizes, or you can get CNC molds made and then just have all the same size or 2 different sizes. So kind of what you prefer. So these are the hooks that I'll be using. The sickle, black nickel finish. They're all kind of just stuck together in this box, so it's kind of a pain, but here's one of the sickle hooks that we'll be using. So I'm going to get some of these out and just set them on the bench. We won't be pouring in the do-it mold. Not yet, anyway. They did change the design a little bit too on the do-it mold. You see the little bait keeper is kind of more, it's more of a, it doesn't round out. It's kind of more flat from this. That one's tapered. It's got a sharper angle to it. You can see that or not. But these ones are both RHB 7-A. And the blue handle one is really old. So I do have my exhaust fan running. And I did get a cheap mic to make it a little easier to hear me and hopefully knock out a lot of that background noise and stuff. So here I'm just getting a few of these hooks out. I don't plan on pouring many in this mold because it's kind of one of those things where it's going to take a long time to produce many jigs because you can only pour, like I said, the 3 at a time. And I just want to play around with it because I've never poured in it. You can preheat the mold, putting it in the oven. If you are going to use an oven like this, the top does get very hot. Don't leave anything lay on the top of it. But you can take these plastic handles off, lay it in there, and then carefully take it out with some oven mitts, put your handles back on, and have a preheated mold. Or you can just pour some jigs underneath here, preheat it. I set my gloves in the other room. I'm going to go grab them. You can probably still hear me because of the mic, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to just grab these gloves. The Lee pot is dripping a little bit. I haven't got the heat set just where it should be. To get it to quit dripping, we're sitting at just above 3 for temperature. And it doesn't look like it's turning blue or purple. So it's not rapidly oxidizing in there. So a little bit of flashing on it. It was closed all the way. Like I said, we're just going to preheat it. And then I take the ones that I just poured, I'll just set them down here carefully, not to drip on my hand. That way, we're also not splashing anything in the molten hot lead. So those all poured pretty nice, a little flashing. But this is a used mold. I don't know how much it was used. It could have been used a lot for all I know. I got it from a friend who had a friend that was getting rid of a bunch of old molds. So, and honestly, probably would never use anything like it because it's so small. But it's starting to warm up a little bit. We'll see how well it shoots. It's still kind of cold. And I take my gloves off. Hopefully when I drop stuff on the bench, it's not quite as loud as it was before. And hopefully the audio is better from now on. Because that was, I think, the number one complaint that I've seen from most people is about the audio not being very good. And I don't like doing voiceovers, but I started doing voiceovers because the exhaust fan was so loud. So didn't really pour all the greatest. The mold's still not hot enough, and the hooks probably weren't heated up quite enough. So I'm going to set these down over here. And then I'm going to put these hooks in and close it up and just let it sit for a minute. I wish I could lay it across the top of the LI'L pot, but the mold isn't quite long enough to do that unless I took one of these and laid it across. Oh, I want the one that doesn't have the pins. This is a bug mold. But you lay that across the top of the LI'L pot, and then you could close it up and also set that and bring this up a little bit. But just be careful so you don't melt your handles. So you could set it up, I guess, like that. Like I said, this is the first time messing around with this one, so I don't know all of the best methods, but I kind of like playing around with things and figuring it out as I go. When you do preheat molds, like the Do It molds, on top of the LI'L pot, this one obviously I modified a little bit, but I always make sure that the wooden handle is off and it's actually pushing down on this weight here, pushes down on that, so it keeps it from burning my handles off. So the hooks have been warming up a little bit in this mold. It is kind of warm, not super warm. The LI'L pot is still dripping a little bit. So we'll see how it looks. So all but one poured good. So just a little bit more time, a little more heat in this mold, and this thing will pour great. So I would typically let these, after they pour good, I would let them sit down on the bench to cool down all the way and for the lead to fully set up. So if you cut it right away, this lead could be pretty soft. But if you give it a little bit of time, it'll have a little bit more, it'll be a little bit harder lead. And when I cut the ball, I always cut it, take a couple of small cuts, and try to save that radius. This one is not cutting very good, and I could probably use different. I got a couple older pairs that are really chewed up and kind of beat really bad. So I like to save back the old ones because they work pretty good for cutting lead yet. But see, the thickness of this coming out of the gate is so much thicker than coming out of the do-it molds. And actually looking at this too, they're offset. So I don't know if that was offset from the factory or if this mold's been dropped or used a lot and no longer is lining up the way it should. So I take a couple cuts. Sorry about dropping that if it was noisy. And then kind of file them to make it round, but keep it away from your face. Go slowly if you do any filing, because you don't want those lead particulates flying around, like I've mentioned a lot in a lot of videos. So the nose is kind of flat yet. These ones are really hard to cut because that sprue is the sprue is so wide and so close to the top of the head or the tip of the ball there. It's hard to cut them round. Maybe snapping them off would work better. I don't typically like to snap them off, but we'll give it a try to see. And this one's damaged. This one didn't pour all the way. The head poured fine, but the rest of it didn't. So I'm just going to hold the hook with this and try to break it off. And it probably won't break off very well either because it's so thick. If you do this, be careful so you don't stab yourself. I'm probably going to break the hook. This lead that I use is really hard. So I don't like snapping them off. A lot of times you can leave a little hole in the head there, and it doesn't look good either. But like I said, a little more heat in this mold and it would pour good. But like I said, I do not like the way that they're cutting and stuff. They're not cutting very good. I could show, I suppose, I'll pour a 1/16 ounce in the do-it mold just to show the difference. And this mold is cold, hasn't heated up at all. We'll just see how it pours. Oops. Set my gloves down and caught a couple jigs. Got a little bit of a mess. So I'm just going to pour into that second one there just to see cold mold, how well it poured. Cold mold, and that one poured perfect. So the do-it mold poured a lot nicer. This one's, like I said, very old. It's got the blue handles. They used to use colored handles to show different price ranges and stuff. So this one's lined up. It's not offset. Poured real nice. So like I said, I would take a couple small cuts and just keep that radius. And that one cut so much nicer. So carefully scrape that or file it very carefully. Make sure it don't get dripped on your hands. So I wasn't gonna pour the do-it mold, but figured I'd give it a shot compared to the other one. So that's a 1/16 ounce. So 1/16 ounce in there compared to this one. It doesn't even come close to fitting in this mold either. So I don't know how they're figuring 1/16. It's closer to the largest one in here. So anyway, give the video a like, share it with your friends. Please subscribe if you haven't already.